Welcome to the Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Today we're going to be talking about what's in the Linux news. So, with me to help host is Eric Adams, and I have Steve. Apparently everything is running tip-top now, and I have unmuted the different bits and pieces because I always seem to forget to do something at every show. So how is everybody?
Excellent.
Good.
I think we're good.
You think you're good? We got a big smile on your face, so I mean, this is good.
It's one of those WTF smiles. So,
oh well, that's fantastic smiles. That's great.
hello, gentlemen.
Well, I'm so glad that I get to see all of your faces today. We got quite a few people in the YouTube chat. Well, a few people. Maybe because it's a really nice day today for some people. I don't know. How's the weather where you're at? Now, Chicago, you're probably just as cruddy as here. Cold and windy.
But it's sunny, very sunny today, but just in the mid 40s. The sun made it feel warmer. You know, like in the car, it was really warm. Like, why am I wearing my jacket? Because the sun's coming through.
Yeah, the youngest had soccer today, so it was 36 degrees out in the park, and I was a little bit cold, not expecting 36. That's Frankenstein. So I know for you, Colin, you got the crazy centigrade thing going on there, so it's not the same thing. So as far as what's been going on in Linux or in tech in the last week, Rick, you said you got the NDI plugin working for you on, was it MX Linux?
Yes, I did. And basically what I did was I had to find a distro that worked on it. And the one I ended up with was MX Linux.
Okay.
So on this machine, I already had it on my framework. I installed the KDE version though on the laptop over here. And from there, I was able to download the stuff I needed for it, and it worked out of the box pretty easy. No problems.
So the NDI plugin?
Yeah.
For OBS?
Yeah.
What are you using, the flat or the deb?
Deb.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to set up with the deb. The flat, you can't get it to work.
Yeah, I had to install GDebi, but other than that.
Well, excellent. Well, I'm glad
I tried with Flatpaks actually by I got it to see the file, but it wouldn't actually acknowledge its existence. Close I came to it.
Well, that's cool. What will you be doing with it? Like, what's the plan for you? So you have it installed. What is the master Rick plan for the NDI plugin?
Well, master plan's probably one. I want to get this over here working well, so it's working together. I can divide up and conquer. Because one of the problems when I tried to do a Zoom stream on this computer here, for CPUs were thing that maxed out on it.
Okay.
And so that was a bottleneck there. So with the divide and conquer here, I can probably do the actual Zoom on this framework and do the streaming on here.
Kind of disperse your load, your computational loads, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, will you be doing this on your next stream this Wednesday?
Well, this Wednesday I'm not doing a stream because I gotta be at church. So
okay,
it's Orthodox Holy Week next week instead of this week.
Okay.
We're a week behind this year, so yeah. So we won't be, but the next, not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, I'll be doing a stream on it using it.
Okay. Well, excellent. We'll be looking forward to that for sure. Thank you very much.
Anybody wants to join in on me, join in, watch me install and say, hey, you're not doing that right, whatever.
Right. That's what I like to do. You just kind of poke at you while you're trying to do something, because I think that's fun. Well, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Rick. Now, Vash, you did a video, and just was released yesterday, I believe, on NixOS. And you actually went through the process of installing it, everything you did in the terminal and so forth. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was curious about this. A friend had told me about it, and how he was getting into it. And it's a really interesting system because, one, you have the Nix language, which is a functional programming language specifically for that package manager and the system. And then the other thing is all the packages are isolated from each other. So you can you can have your setting, you can have your packages installed in two .nix files, and copy that to another machine, or anything like that, and you can have it all set up directly from that. But it's really good for being able to reproduce environments across different machines. It's really also good for keeping applications and versions of applications separate for development work and things like that. So interesting distro. I plan to play with a little bit more and see if I can do some other things with it. There's a lot that I still need to learn about it.
What would you say is your big takeaway from the experimentation, or whatever you want to call it, your exploration of NixOS?
That it's really interesting how different NixOS is compared to even all the other options out there. And I was really surprised with how many packages they have in the repositories. I think they actually have more than Arch, which is really surprising to me.
Is it because a lot of those things are built like at install time, or is it are they pre-compiled binaries that are installed?
I believe they have a bot of some kind that actually goes and builds those packages. I mean, there might be binaries as well, but I think they have a bot that actually goes and builds packages at some point. Like I say, there's a lot I still haven't dug too deeply into.
And in this process, what do you want to get out of it? Like after it's all said and done, after you've gone through it, do you see yourself making this your next distro to use, like replacing something else, or is this a specific use case, kind of a distribution?
So ultimately, I'm looking at it potentially as a home server option. I am looking at doing some work in Python, so that could be something where it might be a good option for that if I don't want to use maybe the virtual environments and I want to have it centrally hosted here. So it's just something I'm looking at primarily as a option for a home server.
Well, Eris brings up in the chat, says, don't forget you can use Nix packages in any distro.
Yes, and that is something I want to look at as well, because you can also use Nix package manager on Mac as well, kind of like Homebrew.
Really?
Yes, I'm curious if that actually works on the M1 Silicon stuff. But yeah, somebody was asking about that in the comments to the video, so I actually probably will be taking a look at Nix package manager a little bit more as well.
So I wonder how it'd be implemented in other distributions.
So
it's
almost like Flatpak.
Okay.
There's a separate package manager you essentially install, and it's all kept isolated from other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the user level or like root level package, or either?
I believe it's mainly focused on user level.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think you could technically do root level, but I don't know that you'd want to.
That's pretty cool. It's almost worth a kind of a revisit, because if you can install Nix packages on any OS, then that could be very handy if there's some specific Nix packages that would help you implement something on another distribution,
yeah,
or
when
Mac
I was
OS.
trying to do NDI, I installed Nix package manager on Peppermint, but it didn't quite have the right packages for it or something like that. So
that's very cool.
Also
excellent.
OpenSUSE.
You said something I really like hearing. OpenSUSE.
Yeah, I said I also installed Nix package manager on OpenSUSE.
And how'd that work?
Pretty good overall. I got it to work and everything, but they may still have it on his computer up here, actually, testing computer.
Well, very cool. Thomas, I'm assuming you're done eating now, right? You can talk?
Yes. Sorry. It's dinner time here.
Way to cram it in at the last moment. You are working on Draugr OS, as it says right there in your name, Draugr OS Dev. So you are in a beta phase right now. It's like beta 1, beta 2, or what is it? What's going on right now with Draugr OS?
So currently, the latest version of Draugr OS is in beta 3. So the way this works is every beta is out for 2 months, and that gives us time to search for bugs. It gives the community time to search for bugs, stuff like that. And it also makes it so that I can work that bug catching and squashing around life, because of course we don't get paid for this. Just like every other open source developer. The advantage of that is ideally you have fewer bugs when you release for stable. The disadvantage is it takes forever, because it's literally like a half year that you're in beta. So currently we're in beta 3, which is the final beta. We are releasing DruggerOS 7.6, which is the latest version, on its stable release in June. I don't have a specific day set yet, but that will be announced on the DruggerOS Twitter and Telegram channel and Discord and all that fancy stuffs. There's been a lot of changes this time around. We swapped out Pulse audio for Pipewire. I've heard mixed feelings about that, but as far as gaming is concerned, I've seen huge benefits to that because, in my personal experience, one of the games that I love playing is Doom Eternal, and if you've ever played Doom Eternal on Linux with Pulse Audio, you'll know that sometimes if you don't have the right launcher settings set in Steam, then you get like a crackling and background noise, like static almost, in the audio, and it's extremely annoying. Pipewire works out of the box, doesn't need anything done to it. It's perfectly fine. And I've noticed that with a few other games too, because like CSGO sometimes has that issue. It also tends to be a little bit better about remembering what the settings are that I put in. I know Scrapjaw has been having issues with it, but my argument there is he's a professional audio connoisseur, if you will. He deals with this stuff for a living, whereas I'm looking at it for just gaming. Trying to remember what else we did. We've improved dual boot support. We fixed a lot of bugs in our system installation utility, upgraded to XFCE 416. We're now compiling the kernel in-house. I'm trying to remember what else there was because there was a lot. So because Ubuntu 22.04 is going to be moving to having Firefox as a snap, it's going to be the same situation as it is with Chromium right now, where if you do sudo apt install Chromium browser, it just installs the snap. It does the same thing with Firefox now. Because of that, and because of some technical limitations, we're actually shipping Firefox as a flat pack. For better or for worse, I know some people won't be happy about that, but you know what? It's basically our only option. I'm sorry.
In all fairness, what's the problem with having a flat pack?
Some people would prefer a native package. I would rather have it as a native package, honestly, because it launches faster, and it also follows the GTK theme better. And you don't have to worry about the weird file stuff with the where the container doesn't see the rest of the file system normally. You have to go weird routes. It works fine. It's just not ideal. And our options were literally either use Epiphany, which is fine. It just doesn't have, it's not one of the big browsers. So it's going to literally be the browser that is just there to install a browser. And we don't want to ship something Chromium based because of Google telemetry stuff. Firefox still has telemetry in it, just not as much. So.
Okay. Have you considered something like a privacy-focused browser?
I've looked into it. Most of them, the issue that I'm seeing is either they are only built for Windows, or they're not in the native package manager, or they're available only as a snap, and I can't use snaps. I can't ship snaps, period, even if I wanted to, because there's a technical limitation there that just Snap will not let me do it. So basically my options are Epiphany, which is available as a deb, Firefox, which is available as a flat pack, or trying to build Firefox into a deb myself. And I did try building it myself, and it is not that easy, unfortunately. So.
Gotcha. I'm surprised there are no debs available for. Is there like an upstream, like an even like an ESR extended support release?
There might be. I hadn't been looking at Firefox ESR, but that is a possibility. I can't make an executive decision like that easily, unfortunately. I actually have like a council of people that I have to refer to. because a few months ago, basically what I said was, hey, if I were to be hit by a bus tomorrow, Drugger OS would be dead. So what I did is I reorganized the leadership so that while I am still the one in charge, there's a council of people and they have the power to override me. And were I to be hit by said proverbial bus, they can replace me if need be.
Now,
so
quick question on that. If you had to choose the kind of bus, what sort of bus would you like to get run over by? I'm just curious. Just for academic purposes, I'm just curious to know like what your preferred bus to get run over by would be. Like a Greyhound, or more
it'd have to be like one of those red double-decker buses like they have in the UK, London.
Yes. Like those tour buses.
Have to be it. Yeah, okay. I want one of those to hit me.
What cartoon effect would you like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like pow, zing, or something like that.
I just want like the screeching tires. That's all I want. Just screeching tires.
I approve of this line of questioning. Please continue.
So, what if it was a school bus, like a yellow school bus? Would that be?
I hope
would you
it's
be okay
empty.
with that?
I think that'd be
just the driver.
Yeah, that would be embarrassing. The kids would be like, "Can you believe that guy?" Right?
Well, like not embarrassing. I don't want to scar elementary school children.
Sure,
that'd be bloody. Come on.
And if it's one of the buses that has like high school kids, that they're like not, the ones that
they don't care
cars yet. Yeah, they wouldn't care.
Yeah, that's fine. They'll take pictures of it and send it to like Instagram or something. I don't care.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I get it. Someone asked, was Eris, when I use the Linux Mint Firefox, could you somehow snag that?
It's a complicated answer.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to abridge this as much as possible, but still keep it understandable. Hypothetically, yes, I could. The issue with this is the way that I build the repositories. I would literally have to have a file that lists every single package in Linux Mint's repositories and basically says, don't install this. Which would, of course, be a very, very large file. So while it's not impossible, it's just impractical.
Okay. Another question. So your distribution, Drugger OS, is based on Ubuntu, correct?
Correct. We stick with Ubuntu LTS releases. Would
it be possible to use the Open Build service and to like the OpenSUSE Open Build service and build a Drugger OS specific package of Firefox that would just be hosted there?
Hypothetically, yes. Because of the way building debs works in general, it would have to be built on Ubuntu. Because when you try to build a package on Drugger OS, because of reasons that elude me, when you use whatever it is, at least the Linux kernel uses to build deb packages, it says, hey, Drugger OS isn't a recognized distribution. We don't know how to build debs here. Sorry, bye.
The reason I say that is they actually have all that stuff set up to build Ubuntu packages there.
Yeah, so like hypothetically, I could do it.
Because you could probably, and they might. I mean, I didn't check. I'm spitballing here.
Mm-hmm.
Try not to get on the camera. But they do have the ability to. You could actually take the already packages that are there already, like the Firefox packages that OpenSUSE puts together, and you could. I don't know if port's the right word or fork's the right word, but you can take those, build like recipes, and and you can use it. You could use that to build Ubuntu packages. So that might be a solution for you. I know that there was a distribution, a tiling window manager that we tested on Biddle that used the Open Build service to build their packages for Ubuntu. So I know it is possible. I know there are other distributions that do it. Regolith. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Regolith.
Yeah.
There we go. See, I knew someone would correct me.
Regolith.
Colin, my fact checker. So that was built using the Open Build service, so they hosted it there, because the OpenSUSE project pretty much is welcoming to all distributions, I think.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I just wanted. I must have missed the early bit there. I was probably reading, and if I'm reading, I can't hear because I'm getting old. Why is there no Is there no .deb file for Firefox? Is that what you're talking about?
So in Ubuntu 2204, which is what DruggerOS 7.6, the one that's currently in beta, is based off of, you can do sudo apt install Firefox. But what's going to happen is it's going to do the exact same thing that if you did sudo apt install Chromium would do. It would install the Snap version of that package.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I missed that bit. Okay.
Yeah. I figured this out the hard way because we are working on an upgrade script. That way, if you're running DruggerOS 7.5.1, the current stable release, and you don't want to reinstall, you can just run that script and it'll upgrade you to 7.6 and you're good to go. One of the issues I encountered was in the installation process of Firefox. For some reason, it actually waits for Snap to restart. So what I have to do in the installation or in that upgrade process is actually at the very beginning, remove Firefox, do the upgrade process, and then go, hey, you had Firefox installed. Do you want us to install this as a Snap or a Flatpak? Dead is unfortunately not an option because of XYZ reasons. And just let the user choose.
So I'm no expert here. I wrote a script a little while ago that installs Firefox with wget, right? So is it possible you could do it that way during install? Or?
Hypothetically, yes, because what you're talking about doing is like downloading the installer from Mozilla. The problem with that is it's not integrated with the native package manager or Flatpak or Snap. And I want to try to stick to those as much as possible, because it makes it easier to control when you get updates and what versions you update to and which versions you skip. It's not quite as easy to do that with Snap. Snap just keeps you on the latest version at all times. Whereas Flatpak, you can do like you do with apt, and you can just straight up skip versions and just upgrade to whatever version you want. With apt, you can actually specify a version to install if you so choose.
I have a question. Is there a Flatpak version or is there a Flatpak meta package in Ubuntu, like Firefox Flatpak, something like along those lines?
Not that I'm aware of. From what I understand, it's just Firefox, and any user who has Firefox installed, when they do that upgrade from Ubuntu whatever to Ubuntu 2204, it'll just basically remove all the old files for Firefox except for the user's config files and install the Snap. And Eris actually did just now mentioned in the YouTube chat, which is a good thing to point out, that Firefox Snap is actually something that Mozilla wanted to do. It's not uncanonical. Mozilla actually asked for this, which I get why. It's because it keeps all the users on the latest version of Firefox at all times. The problem is it screws developers like me who can't ship snaps. So there's, I'm stuck.
So wait, they're not only packaging it for snaps, but they're going to stop packaging it for other.
I think the Flatpak. I think Flatpak is like a separate like third-party build. I don't know about what they're doing on other distributions. I haven't looked into it that much.
Yeah. Now that she's mentioned it, I don't know that they package any of their stuff for distributions. It's all just tar GZ.
Yeah, I do know that they make it so that you can package it, because when I was trying to figure out how to package it myself, there are tools to package it in different formats for different, what's the word I'm wanting here, for different
package
platforms.
managers. Yeah,
that too.
I wonder, Nate, if that's something that the Open Build service could do.
I don't know. Maybe.
Anyway, just trying to think of a way around it.
I know they can do without a problem any like native packages. That's not a problem. I think I thought, and maybe I might be misremembering. I think they can do app images as well, and I think maybe Flatpak, but I could be wrong on the Flatpak. I could be wrong on the app images too. I thought it was one or two of those. So
can you not, Thomas? Can you not have a separate? I don't know. Can you build a uninstall into of a wget into the store or something like that? That just for Firefox alone. that could be there
So-
somewhere? Or?
So I don't have like a store that's specifically for Drugger OS. I just ship Synaptic and GNOME software. I used to
Okay.
have one, but that was like it was put in there because that release came immediately after Nintendo's whole tirade where they were shutting down ROM sites and discouraging the uses of emulators and all that. And at that time, we were shipping emulators. So I kind of had to do something to make it so that, a user, if they so want to, they can install those emulators, but it's not actually shipped. But I'm not maintaining that anymore because we switched focus from that to general gaming.
Okay.
Right. Okay. That's a
Well,
bit of
very-
a snag, isn't it? Didn't Firefox used to have a .deb on their website?
I think the installer might be available as a dev. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that.
Could you use Flatpak? Like just use the Mozilla Flatpak? Would that be a possibility?
That's what I'm doing.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
Yeah,
That's
that's what I'm
what you're
doing.
doing. Okay.
Yeah, it's not ideal because it still takes a little bit to launch the first time, but it works. I had to do a little bit of wrangling in order to get the launcher working on the XFCE panel, but it works. That's what matters.
Eric says that Firefox has never had a deb. They offered a tarball.
Okay.
So
Oh, only ever offered. Oh, I thought that. Oh, maybe I'm thinking Google Chrome. I
Yeah,
think
I'm
they
pretty
offered
sure
dot-
they ship a dev.
Right.
Because if I'm not mistaken, they don't just install Chrome, they also add a repository to your sources.list file.
yeah, Chrome does.
Yeah, which is
All right. Well, very cool.
kind
So
of stupid.
when do you think you're going to be ready for the next version of Drago OS to be tested out here on the Linux Saloon panel?
It's planned to be sometime in June that
Okay.
it will be hitting stable. I'm aiming for early June, just to reduce the amount of time between the Ubuntu 22.04 launch, which is going to be sometime next week or the week after. I think it's April 26th. Someone
Okay.
double check me there. I think, and the Drago OS 7.6 launch. So I'm aiming for early June.
That's awesome. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to test that distribution here. All right. So today is our news flight night. News flight night. I guess it's not night for you, Colin. So our news flight. We'll just omit the night when I'm saying it. And we're gonna muddle through the Linux news. And as always, a big thanks to Michael of This Week in Linux, who just passed this 5-year mark for this great flight of topics. To start off, I want to get into some desktop environment news. Now, it's unfortunate Dan isn't here since he is our Lubuntu guy, and I'd like to hear his take on this. But LXQt has version 1.1.0 release. Seems like a pretty big deal. So they have a new color palette for the widget style to maintain a uniform look across the desktop. 2 new application menu layouts, one called Compact and Simple. And Simple is a minimal menu layout, as well as Compact, even more minimal. Color palettes matching the available dark themes have been added, making it easier to achieve a uniformed overall look. Appearance of the directory menu is improved with additional style options. They have improved default settings. They say that most distributions will ship their own settings, but nevertheless, they've improved the default look. The main menu search is cleared after action, which I remember like LXQt, it wouldn't always clear. Like whatever you searched for previously would be the next time you went to it. So now it clears. The taskbar buttons width is reduced. Home, network, computer, and trash are shown by default on the desktop. Change default theme, wallpapers, and icons. Improvements to the color picker. Panel widget for those that deal with color design. You can check this out if you are interested. I'll put a link here in the YouTube chat for the updates there. Does anybody here use LXQt on the reg? Mark, so what are your thoughts about some of these changes?
I don't use it on my regular desktop, but I use it on my Raspberry Pi 400, and it's just a good lightweight desktop that functions well for that.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm glad to see a new version, so I'll have to give it a try.
Now, what would you say is the unique competitive edge for LXQt over some others? Just that it's lightweight? Like why LXQt over, let's say, XFCE? Any
Again,
thoughts?
I just found it the navigating and the various pieces. It just pops quickly.
Okay. I've enjoyed using LXQt, and one of the things that I tend to do with it when I install it on something, although I'm not running it actively on anything right now, mostly because Plasma has been pretty great as far as memory consumption. So on the lower end machines, they're just running Plasma. But what I like to do with LXQt is take the swap out, I think OpenBox is the default, and use Kwin instead. So you get all the desktop effects and everything else with Kwin, but using the more simplified LXQt. And it's a 50 megabyte tax essentially on your system RAM, which I think is a decent like trade-off essentially. I mean, OpenBox is fine, I guess, but I just happen to like LXQt better. I mean, Kwin better. Also, Wayland, I suppose.
It actually
Anyway.
went the other way. I've tried LXQt before. Again, I'm using Raspberry Pi, but
Okay.
I've tried your OpenBox, and it's like much more responsive. And it's like when I install it with the EndeavorOS version, it's like I get all the file managers and everything along with the shortcut configs. And it's
Okay.
like I have had a much better experience using this just plain OpenBox compared to LXQt, because by default LXQt uses OpenBox.
Mhm.
And like probably the configuration is the same, but by the default, like for Endeavor OpenBox version, the shortcuts are really good. Like you can use it almost like a tiling window manager, but not exactly.
Oh.
But with all the configured shortcuts, it's like you can send with easy shortcuts, like pre-configured shortcuts to any window, any desktop you want. Again, move the windows side to side using meta plus left light, like all those things. I think in the Pi I've tried KDE too, but I think LXQt and OpenBox are much more responsive on the Pi.
What is a Pi 3, Pi 4? What is it that you're using
I'm
it on?
using Pi 4B.
Yeah, those are fun little machines. I've been using Plasma, and it seems fine. But I should probably try LXQt on the Pi then. See if I notice a big difference with it. Very, very cool. Anyway, so I think that's really awesome that the desktop environment LXQt is ticking along. I'm sure it means more work for Dan and his team at Lubuntu. So that's good for them. Keep them employed, I guess. Not being paid employed, whatever. Gainfully employed. Is anybody here in the market for anything like any new hardware, or are we kind of at a holding pattern in the hardware realm?
So I am actually looking at getting a Raspberry Pi 20W for a project.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is I have parts for said project. I'm making, they're still coming in because I have to actually like make the power supply myself. But what it is I'm going to make a smart frame, like a smart picture frame, basically.
Okay.
And it's going to be like a Christmas present, either for my girlfriend or my grandparents, one of the two. We'll see how it goes.
It's kind of the same.
Either way, and so because the back panel basically will have to be 3D printed in order to replace whatever panel it comes with.
Okay.
And I'll have the CAD files for that. I'll essentially be able to replicate this as many times as I want, as long as I can get the parts. So I just got the screen in today. There's everyone. Say hello.
Ooh, look at that. Yeah, I can see myself in the reflection there almost.
It's not very big, honestly. It's only like, I think it's 1024 by 600. So it's not huge. It's a little bit smaller than a 5x7 picture.
Okay.
So the idea is I literally am just going to be able to get like a 5x7 picture frame, get a mat, and just like cut it to the size to hide the bezel, put it in there, glue it in place, and then hook it up to the Raspberry Pi and have it so there's a flash drive, and it can just pull pictures off of that and just cycle through them all. It wouldn't have internet access, so I wouldn't be able to update or put any new pictures on it. But also you wouldn't have to worry about another device on your network taking up an IP address or bandwidth or whatever. And it also reduces complexity because I don't have to set it up to automatically update. I just set it and forget it. And
cool.
since it would basically be air gapped, security is a non-issue. So I got my panel in today. I'm working on a power supply for it because I have to power this and a Raspberry Pi, and as far as I'm aware, there aren't any basically single board power supplies that fits into the form factor I need. So
I'm guessing right now Mark has an idea because he seems like it looked like wheels are cranking on Mark's face. And so now I'm thinking, and look at that smile.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm actually greatly enjoying this project because it gives me a chance to like flex my electrical engineering muscles because they don't get a lot of exercise these days. And it gives me a chance to play with a new toy and just, you know, I get to play with my 3D printer. I have another excuse to have one, like to begin with.
I understand. Now, let me ask a question. I don't want to burst any bubbles, but this is a serious question. Why not just buy one of those off-the-shelf picture frames?
That's an excellent question that I actually looked into.
Okay.
So the reason for that is because, in my mind, it means a little bit more if you make something yourself, but it would still have to be halfway decent to like actually make a decent excuse to make it yourself. And I actually did the math and figured out that making it myself is actually just a little bit cheaper than just buying it off the shelf.
Really?
Yeah, like it is a significantly greater time investment because I have to write the software and I have to 3D print it and design the power supply and all that. But at the end of the day, it costs me, I think, about $10 less to just make it myself.
When the show is done, remind me. I actually have a link for something you may not have to write the software, just do some config files, and you'll be good to go. I have something already set for you. Yep.
I like this.
It's not Screenly, because Screenly I don't think Screenly would fit you because you can't just drop pictures on there. But this is a way to just drop pictures into a folder.
Yeah.
And then run. So
because my idea for the pictures was basically there would be like 5 folders, and they would either have just like a certain number of X's or stars that would like correspond to a rating. So like 1 star or 1X to 5 star or 5X. And the higher the number of X's or stars, the more likely it would be shown. Like it would just like randomly show them, but would prefer things with a higher rating. That's the idea. But if there's something that's out there that would save me time and effort, please.
I'll share it. It may not work. It may not fit that, but it's something at least maybe you can use portions of it. That whole Unix philosophy of whatever, parts.
Yeah.
So I was going
yes.
to ask on that Pi Zero, what is the video cable interface if you're going to use the the micro? Oh, that's not showing the micro HDMI. But then I found it, and I can't see it very well on mine. But I guess there is a ribbon interface on.
That's not a display output.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
It's not. It's the cable serial interface or the camera serial interface.
Oh, camera. Okay, so you're going to have to use the micro HDMI. Okay.
But the Raspberry Pi 02W does actually have solder pads on it to solder on composite video. I'm not going to use them, but it is another option. And if I'm not mistaken, there is a way that you can use like your GPIO pins for display output. Again, not going to use it, but it's another option if somebody was wanting that. I don't know. Not something I would do. Too many pins. Oh. Too much work.
Well, that's pretty cool. I like that you're doing a project like this. It's a good Raspberry Pi project. I've done something similar years ago, and so I'll share my notes with you on that. That's awesome. Well, that segue was but I'm glad you brought this up because it was a really good discussion there. There's some hardware news. Razer and Lambda Tensor Lapbook is they are a provider of a deep learning infrastructures. Lambda is a provider of deep learning infrastructure and has teamed up with Razer to build a Linux-powered laptop for deep learning. So most ML engineers don't have a dedicated GPU laptop, which forces them to use a shared resource on a remote machine, slowing down the development cycle. And said Steve Balaban, Lambda CEO and co-founder. So when you're stuck SSHing into a remote server, you don't have any of your local data or code, and even have a hard time demoting your model to colleagues. Demoing? Demoing. I can't read. I must have listened to country music. I had a hard time demoing your model to colleagues. The Razer X Lambda TensorBook solves this. So they claim it's the new world's most powerful Ubuntu Linux desktop designed for deep learning. The GPU, here are the specs. The GPU is an Nvidia RTX 3080 Max-Q, 16 gigabytes of VRAM, DDR6. The CPU is an Intel Core i7 11th generation i7, so 11800H. 64 gigabytes of RAM, DDR4 RAM, 2 terabyte NVMe, and display is a 165 hertz 1440p 15.6 inch display. The I/O has one UHS 3 SD card reader, one Kensington lock port, so nobody steals your laptop, which you never actually lock it down, I guess. 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, that's USB-C, 1 power port, 3 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, 1 microphone combo jack, and 1 HDMI 2.1. They have Ubuntu 20.04 LTS, and it starts at the low price of $3,499 US, and goes all the way up to $5,000. So if you got some money to burn on a deep learning laptop, this one might be for you. So if you'd like to see, got a link for that. I'll be putting it into the YouTube chat.
That's really awesome. Razer has a Linux community. They have a Discord specifically for Razer Linux. And
Really?
yeah, and there's also if you search any of your repositories, there's Razer meta packages for a lot of the peripherals and whatnot, especially for laptops and just Razer products in general. It's kind of cool. There's a lot of
very cool.
good stuff for it. And then this is probably one of those things where we're going to see a lot of that trickle down stuff from, they're putting a lot of work into something in an industry. And if it does well, the rest of us with just, the last year's or the year or two before's generation of laptops are going to see, the fruit of that too. We won't have to spend the $5,000 on, something bleeding edge. We'll have the drivers and all of the stuff. It'll be here. That's cool. I run a Razer.
Cat Daddy said that he didn't know Razer supported Linux like that, and I did not either. So Razer, they do like mice, keyboards, right? Like they're the ones like the fancy little logo. You see it pretty much at every store.
Yeah, a lot of people
Electronic
think it's just me more the gamer tech, but
yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah, but it's really like the Razer notebook I have is all aluminum shell. It's super lightweight. The only thing you run into with powerful laptops is you want to have your power brick with you if you're gonna do intensive stuff. But if you're on a road trip, you just disable a handful of cores, pop it up on your lap in the truck or wherever you're at, and you're cool for a few hours.
Yeah, these are things I didn't know for 500, Alex. Is there would you say that Razer produces more quality products, like as far as mice and keyboards and things? Like, is it worth? Is their brand actually worth that?
I don't have my first into Razer products is this one is the 2019 Razer Blade. It's got the 2060 i7 with 6-core 12-thread, and yeah, I would say the quality of this, I would buy other Razer products for sure. I would now as far as their audio stuff, like they have some USB microphones and they're pretty good quality. I've seen reviews on them and heard the product of what people can do with them. I'm sure they're great. I have my own components and stuff for audio, but they make some really neat products where you can like some people have 60% keyboards and whatnot. They also have stuff that's like just for one hand. It's got just a select number of keys. It looks like something out of like a Ridley Scott sci-fi setup or whatever. It's pretty cool. They're not just LED, RGB for days. Razer does invest in other parts of tech and whatnot.
Well, that's very cool. That's exciting to hear. Yeah, I really truly didn't know that one, that Razer supported Linux like that, and two, I've heard the name before. I just never thought to even consider it.
Are they the same company that made the external graphics card thing? Is that them or was that somebody else? Somebody brought out you could fit a normal desktop size GPU externally and plug it into a laptop. I thought that was Razer as well.
Yeah, Razer has one of their own. They have two. They released two different external USB-C. I think they're USB-C or Thunderbolt docks. You can put a full-size GPU in. I have not messed with that. I would love to do that because I have another GPU. I have a 1060 in my desktop, and I would be cool to be able to have both of them available.
I think they didn't take off too well because they're pretty expensive. I think that's probably the reason why.
It also was a matter of when those come out, it was one of those peripherals that got ahead of the availability for where machines didn't have the plug and play operation of USB-C and 3.0 and Thunderbolt. But I'll tell you what, being able to buy a laptop this thin that has a graphics card and CPU that is better than the 5th gen i7 that my desktop is with a 1060 in it, it's worth it because I paid the same amount for this laptop in 2020 for a year-old laptop that was a refurb as I did when I built that massive tower with an i7 4790K and 16 gigs of RAM and SSDs and this ultra wide screen that I've got as a secondary now to this laptop. I think I spent 1600 or better on the desktop, and that's what I spent on this one laptop. A handful of years later. Worth it.
Well, if that laptop is a little bit out of your price range and reach, I have another machine that's coming out by Star Labs. It's a Starbook and a mini PC. And now this the Starbook comes with AMD. It's a 14-inch IPS Full HD 1920 by 1080 display with backlit keyboard, glass trackpad, which I'm a big fan of those glass trackpads. I have a machine with that. That is way nicer than any of the plastic trackpads. Way nicer. I think they should all be glass. Probably not best for the clumsy. It has quad speakers. I'm not really sure what that would be. 4 speakers in there, like for surround sound? I don't know. It was originally announced in May 2021. The Starbook Mark V laptop was only available with 11th generation Intel Core i3 or i7 processors, but now you can reconfigure the Linux-powered laptop with an AMD Ryzen 7 5800U Okra Core processor, running at 1.9 gigahertz and features a boost clock of up to 4.4 gigahertz. Now, this machine can take up to 64 gigabytes of RAM, 2 terabyte SSD storage, Thunderbolt 4 support. It has 2 USB-C 3 Type A ports, 1 USB 2 port, 1 HDMI port, a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, a micro SD card reader. I always kind of think a USB 2 port is kind of a waste, like a waste of space, but whatever. So with all Star Labs laptops, the processor is built on board, which means that it's not possible to upgrade it at a later time. So the warranties comes with an open source, designed for open source software, needs open warranty. So it's a 1-year limited warranty, allows you to take your computer apart, replace parts, install and upgrade, use any operating system, even your firmware, all without voiding the warranty. Firmware updates for the BIOS, embedded controller, and SSD are just a click away with the power of the LVFS or Linux vendor firmware service. A wide variety of distros to choose from are available on the default install. Does that laptop appeal to anybody?
I like the fact that it has USB 2 port for one reason.
Okay, what's that?
I have had peripherals in that or USB that if they were plugged into a 3 port, they did not work properly.
Really?
Yes.
In what way?
It was a keyboard, like a little mini keyboard. It was only had like 32 keys. It wasn't like a full size, not a keyboard like you type on, but like music keyboard, MIDI controller. And I had to use. I ended up having to plug a USB 2 dock that had multiple ports on it and plug it into that and then into the 3 in order for it to actually work.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
So some things are weird that way. They just don't function on a 3 port if they're, I don't know. I'm sure it was just that one thing out of there, but I'll give it a plus for having that because it would have saved me.
Well, that's good to know. I've never heard that before. So I guess you are the edge case that needs that USB 2 port.
If you ever plug a USB 2 peripheral into a 3 port and it doesn't work, don't send it back. Go get a dock. Get a USB 2 dock that works with your 3, and then see if it works.
Well, as far as the price of it, Anna, I am not sure offhand, but I'll get back with you on that.
What was the price on that again?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up here. Here's the link to it.
That's what you were saying.
So if you want to check that out, I'm gonna go ahead and look at it right now. So I'll try and stall for time a little bit. I think Steve might buy that laptop. I'm just trying to call you out, Steve, since I haven't heard you say a single word this entire time. So I just want
Well,
you to
because you
say,
had me muted in the beginning. Oh, all of
No.
us.
well, that's because I'm a terrible human being. So
Let's say $930. Something
think I'm
popped
not-
up in the lower corner.
I'm not really sure what the I'm scanning down to see what's $930 is the starting price. So Anna, I'm not sure if $930 is out of the budget, but I think for a new machine with those kind of specs, that's not bad at all. I don't know how I feel about not being able to replace the CPU. I mean, maybe it's just not necessary at this point, but I like the option. All the Dell Latitudes I've purchased have that ability to swap out the CPU, and I have done that to both of them. I've only had two that as primary machines. Well, they have another machine. It's the Byte Mini PC. This has an AMD Ryzen 7 5800U CPU as well. The Vega 8 Radeon graphics, 8 gigabytes of RAM built into it, up to 64 gigabytes. Storage is 250 gigabyte SSD over provisioned storage. I'm not sure what that means. The ports, it comes with a combo audio microphone jack, USB-C, USB-A, a DC power jack, 2 HDMI, a real Ethernet port, an RJ45, 2 USB 2 ports, so pretty much scrap is in heaven on that one, and a micro SD on the side. It's Visa compliant, so you can put on a Visa mount, Visa. And the starting price for that one is $793. So that's pretty cool.
That would be a perfect starter HTPC type setup. If you wanted to have a box you could do some gaming on, you wanted to watch some movies, you didn't want to, like, I'm trying to get away from having a smart TV, and I'm looking for something in this kind of area where either I'm going to get an Android box or I'm going to do something like this, because it's not hard to stick in an entertainment stand. With a Vesa mount, you can hide it super easy.
Mm-hmm.
I've used my Pi 4 for home theater PC, and that seems to work pretty well. That's a little bit cheaper than the $793 that computer is.
You
Probably
can't
doesn't do.
really buy Pi 4s right now, can you?
I think they are I think not until June. I thought was the when they'd be available again. I could be wrong. Maybe Jinda can fact check me on that one, since he's good at putting links. Find out when the Raspberry Pi is available again. Well, I do think it's very cool that there are there are PC computer manufacturers that are targeting the Linux market like this. So I think that's pretty cool to see that. And I don't think $793 is horrible, but I wouldn't just. I'd have to have a purpose, like a reason for buying that. I got enough spare computer garbage here. I would have to really justify that to myself. And Anna Rita would probably have some crosswords with me if I just spent that kind of money.
So this thing comes with Linux?
It does.
What's the distro on this one? Is it?
I think you have
I
a few
see.
to choose from.
Okay, in this article it says Ubuntu, Elementary, Mint, Manjaro, MX, and Zorin. You can also pay extra for a Windows license if you really want. I like that little stab in there. That's good.
That is fun. So I wonder if they contribute back to. I'm sure it's somewhere in there, but I wonder if they contribute back to the projects at all financially for the install. I know some projects do that, or I should say some manufacturers do that. My guess is they probably do.
You know, it's crazy. You buy other machines that are Windows, and even with Dell, if you order their stuff that's Linux, you end up still paying the premium. But I think that's because those laptops through Dell are developer level ones.
Yeah,
so
it could be.
That extra may be going back into the source code and stuff.
I know Dell does. There's the licensing agreement they have with Ubuntu or Canonical. There is a financial incentive for Canonical on that. I don't know what it is, but I know there is. I'm sure that's some insider business stuff. But I do think it's interesting they have Core Boot for the firmware. So I've never actually used a computer with Core Boot. Does anyone here have any Core Boot experience? So Mark would be on my list. Wait, does a framework laptop, does that have Core Boot, or does that have like American Megatrends or something like that?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think it's i5. I don't know what the mood is.
So moving on, got some interesting distro news. So I'm pretty excited about the first one on my list. So the next generation of Suse Linux Enterprise is coming out now. They're a little bit cagey on this release, but I'm sure it's because they want to prime the news cycle about it or something like that. But it's been 4 years since the introduction of SLE 15, or SLE stands for Suse Linux Enterprise. And Suse is now working toward the successor, and it seems there will be some big changes coming. So this is the period of time Suse and OpenSUSE have already gone through some pretty big changes that were quite innovative with the development and community interactions. So I don't know if you're familiar with the jump era, where SLE and SUSE, where Leap and SUSE Linux Enterprise became closely integrated with OpenSUSE, both Tumbleweed and Leap, where they basically the technology is being shared a lot more between them. So there are reports that there will be radical changes for the technology and design with their new adaptable Linux platform for SLE, and they're working on their next generation of enterprise SUSE operating system. Now, the article kind of goes on quite a bit more, but some speculation is that is anyone here familiar with like Silverblue or Micro OS? Have they used those? So apparently, it's an immutable operating system, so transactional based. So apparently, there might be some incorporating of some of those technologies that have kind of proven themselves out. So SLE 15 was initially released in 2018, and a lot of things changed, including requirements for users and customers, technologies, and the speed of new versions of applications, languages, and the libraries appearing. Also, the connection between Leap and SLE has changed. While some bits and pieces got better, this is a quote from SUSE's Steven Baylert. We firmly believe that they can do better. SLE 15 is a great general purpose operating system, yet challenged with some use cases, now places of deployment and the types of enhancements requested show that it's time for a successor. So not a ton of details are been given on what's changing, but they've elaborated on just a bit of it in the mailing list. So first and foremost, ALP will be developed in the open. We're not going to put the pieces together internally and then share it outside as they have in the past. And no, we are not creating and building in the OpenSUSE build service. The project next to you, you get directly and see what's going on and participate more easily. Another important point is that they intend to split what is more generic. Everything is closely intertwined into two parts. One smaller hardware enabling piece as a kind of a host OS, and then the layer providing and supporting applications, which will be in a container and VM based. So you might say this is very generic. Can you tell us more? And of course, in the upcoming weeks, more and more will be crystallized, and we'll share as quickly and as regularly as possible. This is just a first heads up to inform you that we, SUSE, are in the process of setting everything up from project to feedback channels, from documenting to testing. So I think that was pretty interesting. I don't know what's going to mean. How much am I going to have to relearn? I have no idea. Probably not a lot. Do you ever get worried about when a distribution says big changes are coming? Does that ever cause trepidation?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
And
because I mean, I guess it depends. If it's a distro that you rely on, then yeah, absolutely, that would stop me in my tracks. But if it was something that I would like to see changed, then that's probably something I'd be excited about.
I wonder if it's an actual structural change or an implementation change of the distribution, because you could say, okay, they do say like a VM for the applications, which that would make sense for like a server setup, but that doesn't sound like it would make sense for like a workstation deployment. I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems like you wouldn't want to put applications into a VM or a container for I guess maybe Flatpak is kind of a container, is it not?
Yeah.
Or sort of a container.
Yeah, it is. It's a container.
So I do see the need for additional security, and I wonder if something like AppArmor or SE Linux, if their ability to isolate applications is just not as good as what Flatpak has to offer. But I guess I can't really say for that. I don't know. Just spitballing here.
So you're concerned about what's updating with OpenSUSE? Is that what you were saying? Sorry, I was making a coffee. I was sort of listening. But
I'm not concerned at all because I'm just not. I don't. Now, if they're saying, "Hey, we're closing our doors and there's gonna be no more OpenSUSE," yeah, that would concern me. But I mean, things are. The one thing you can count on is things are constantly changing. I mean, how much has Linux changed in the last, let's just say, since 2016? Would you say it's vastly different? A little bit different? I mean, what we're using now for a lot of things are the same, but there's a lot of things that are different as well. I don't necessarily see things break. For me, as long as nothing breaks, I don't really care. Really.
I think it's changed heaps because I mean you can't even do a simple sudo apt install something and ends up being a snap package. So I'd have to think it has changed quite a fair bit, right? I mean that's impacting on Thomas that we've heard of this morning or tonight. So it has changed heaps, and it looks to me like a lot of people are moving more and more towards flat packs and snaps, and well, mainly flat packs I think has become very popular. Don't know about app images, but I mean things are changing. It looks to me like the base is becoming very unimportant, really, because you can pretty much get what you need across the board if you need it, because more and more flat packs and snaps are being designed, and you could just about go on any Linux distro and have the applications you want. And dependencies and all that are a thing of the past, just about.
Yeah, I've said that too, where in the past it was a big deal, right? The distro you chose meant a lot, and today I think it's much less important because the base is more or less giving you sort of hardware enablement, the core package set. But on any distribution I run, I just use Flatpak and I can have the latest version of whatever. And I've pretty much standardized on Flatpak. And I think because GNOME has standardized on it as well, and GNOME is so popular in terms of being the default desktop for large distributions, that kind of has bled over, to those distributions looking at that and saying, oh yeah, well that makes sense. And Ubuntu is doing it with Snap. It's the same basic premise where you now don't need to build a package for all of the different architectures and all of the different releases that you're supporting. You just have essentially one unified package that runs on any of those. So it's just a lot easier to and I understand that, and I think that's a laudable goal. It's definitely something we should all be happy about, because for years that was a major complaint, right? How many times did you run into a situation where you needed to do something and it was incredibly difficult because the distribution didn't support it, and you had to fight against like the defaults and make something work that wasn't really supposed to work that way? And so I think it is NDI. Is that what you said? Yeah,
I had to find the right distro. I didn't want to update all things, so that I can use something like Tumbleweed or Fedora, one of those ones that updates all the time. Because I don't want to update this frequently, but I wanted something stable like Debian, but old Debian would probably, I haven't checked Bullseye, but I think it doesn't really create the right up-to-date OBS out of the pop box on it.
No,
So-
in their repo, it's still 26 something. Because I've been going with that with the last week or so. I was working on getting OBS installed on Peppermint, and the Snap wasn't working, which was always never failed me before. The Flatpak works great, but because the way Flatpak is designed, you can't get NDI to work on it. They realize that, and I think they're kind of working on it. And I think it might be because NDI is proprietary.
Yes, that's important because Flatpaks is, I mean, they're OBS is going to be put on Flatpak exclusively at some point.
Yeah, well, it's out on Flatpak now.
Yeah, I know it's out on, but it's going to be exclusive, I think.
Yeah.
I use the OBS Snap in OpenSUSE, and I chose to use that because it has the NDI plugin and also all of Wimpy's like lickies and chewies built right into it. So I have to do no configuring. I just
Right.
install that, and I'm good to go. I know some people. I know he's like maybe moving away from Snap a little bit too. I don't really know what's going on there, but regardless, it works very well for me. And every Linux Saloon has been using that Snap and Biddle in the last year as well. So kudos to the Snap folks for a great thingy right there.
No, I was just saying, I was going to segue, kind of speaking of Debian, MX Linux 21.1 released.
Oh yeah, that one
Just-
hasn't told me yet.
It's
So,
funny. It's funny, you guys. Earlier, Eric and I, we had on the early show, we had a pretty good long conversation about how things have changed since almost a decade. And I remember when the snaps and the flat packs were kind of new, and there was some of that neckbeardy curmudgeonish kind of like, what's up with this and the bloat and having everything packed in and all of that. And now it's like they're here and we use them, and they're actually like they've proven to have their use cases. And I don't ever hear the the same complaints about them anymore. It's like, does it work with audio or video stuff? Do you have permission access to these things with this flat pack or that flat pack or whatever? It's all of it's in the ironing out stages, and it's now in the realm of, okay, is it more secure this way or that way? How is it containerized? It's all the ironing out. Everything is so much more plug and play. And I still use app images still.
Mhm. Yeah,
like they're
same.
common. I see them from here and there. There's some apps that are just like, hey, we have an app image. My slicer from Prusa is an app image, for example, and that's the only way it comes. But it's fine. It
But
works.
they have a flat pack.
They have a flat pack.
Yeah, on FlatHub, yeah. I use that flat pack. Also, Cura has a flat pack as well. And LeoCat, if you like to build Legos virtually so you don't step on them, flat pack for that as well.
Ooh.
And so there's a lot of like FreeCAD. I think FreeCAD has a flat pack, but I use the system packages in OpenSUSE. I find the performance is slightly better. So, but anyway, a lot of Flatpak has a lot of things. I found that although I use snaps quite a bit, I am using a lot more Flatpak than I have been, and for the most part, if there's not a package, an RPM package for it, I just install the Flatpak or Snap. Like said before, is the distribution's almost a little bit less relevant, almost, but I think it is, and I think that's a good thing in many ways. But Steve, like you were saying, MX Linux 21.1, it's not irrelevant. Tell me about what's come with MX Linux 21.1.
Well, this is the first point release of MX Linux 21. It's consisting of bug fixes, kernel updates, and application updates. It's based on Debian GNU Linux 11.3. MX Linux 21.1 brings back the disk manager utility to the ISO images, adds various improvements to the installer, updates many of the pre-installed packages, and introduces the MX Samba config utility for those who want to configure Samba and CIFS shares. Linux 5.16 for the AHS edition, which actually
Nice.
I installed on one of my ICDoc SSDs. And not a lot more than that. I can pop a link in the post. You can read more. But I haven't gone into it a whole lot. I've been playing a lot with Peppermint, and Debian, and having my little issues with the Debian base. There is a big difference the way like MX Linux does for the average user. It's a pretty nice way of them taking Debian, kind of like what Linux Mint does with LMDE5, and you almost don't know that you're on Debian because of the way it's set up for you.
I think the AHS edition of MX Linux is a very compelling offering that they have because it has all the latest kernel or near latest kernel, and so they're able to, for the hardware enablement and everything else. I think that's super cool that they have that. So Wildflower gets another point release. What's that, Rick?
It's the only one that's worked on this framework, the Debian-based distros.
Is it because of the AHS
Yeah, because
edition?
you can install a more
Right.
up-to-date kernel.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I've always had a great experience with MX Linux. I think it's my favorite Debian. Sorry, Peppermint, but it's my favorite Debian distribution. Like it's very predictable. You know what you're gonna get. They kind of add a few extra new things to it. I don't use their Plasma because it's a little behind, but I like the fact that they have the newer kernel, a great XFCE edition, and the installer is easy to use. It just, to me, it's a very nice distribution, and I really appreciate their XFCE, how they put that together.
Yeah, when I installed it back on the living room computer, where we have an NVIDIA dedicated NVIDIA driver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I changed the resolution to match what we always put on there. And the top part of it is black. I went into, I think, XFC version way, so I hit it and typed in NVIDIA. It popped up this NVIDIA driver installer, and next thing I have 5.13 on it. Works beautifully.
So Adam, he snuck in here, and he hasn't said anything yet.
He was saying enough out in the chat.
Well, that's true. He does say a lot on the chat, and usually
Silence is golden.
But when you speak, you have those golden vocal cords because of all the silence. So
No, that's just swallowing molten gold.
Delicious. Are you running MX Linux or at all, or have you run MX Linux?
No. To be polite, I'm just gonna say no.
Okay, that's fair. Are you running any Linux right now? Because it seems like you go through these phases where you don't even touch Linux.
Sure.
Yeah. Ubuntu?
Various ones, yeah. Depends on what I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay. Good times.
Actually, I'm interested if Adam's tried the new GNOME 42.
I have.
Because you're a GNOME user.
It's really
I
great,
thought so.
actually. I really like it quite a bit, especially with a trackpad and stuff, because I've been using a mouse more lately, but it's not great for my hands. So I usually use a trackpad. Having like the gestures in GNOME 42 is really helpful, and they, the like one-to-one nature of them feel very similar to the ones on Mac OS. Actually, I use the Magic Trackpad with the desktop when I do that. So it's basically the same trackpad as a Mac. But yeah, like the gestures are great. The performance is awesome, as on Wayland at least. Wayland has its issues here and there, certainly depending on your hardware, but I've noticed, great performance and everything with GNOME 42. Different implementations seem to have different, differences, I guess. So Ubuntu 22.04 in the beta, I tried it on my work laptop. Great performance and everything, but obviously not the entire GNOME 42 experience. And I've tried it on Fedora as well with the 36 beta, and again, great experience, but not as good performance. I think Ubuntu has like some specific patches that they applied to theirs that are not applied to the Fedora one, or it wasn't at the time at least. And yeah, so the performance was different, but overall the experience is great. Yeah, I really enjoy it. GTK4 apps, like, good stuff. Like they look really good to me. They're smooth, functional. The responsive design that a lot of them have is top notch. I really like it.
I haven't tried 42 yet. It hasn't come up, I suppose. But I do like the number 42. I like the answer to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good idea.
I've been trying Wayland as much as I can. I've just hit a bit of a snag at the moment because my KDN Live Flatpak won't save. It doesn't open up a save dialog box or a save as or anything. So I've toggled on a few things within FlatSeal, but it hasn't worked. So sometimes you forget which desktop you're actually on, whether it's Wayland or X11.
Yeah. And like it's interesting because we notice the difference, right? The sort of the correlation is, well, I switched to Wayland and it stopped working, so it must be Wayland, right? But perhaps Wayland's working fine, and just the way that Kden Live is built doesn't work properly with it. So we're quick to blame the thing that seems obvious, but it may not be, right? It may be a permissions issue, like you checked with FlatSeal. It could be an issue with Kden Live as an app. It could be a some kind of KDE framework issue that is in the runtime. It could be many different things, but I mean, functionally, you could say, well, it works on X, so it must be Wayland, but that doesn't actually get to the root of the cause, right? It's just like, well, here's how I just make this go away.
Yeah, well, I got OBS recording working on Wayland. I'm pretty happy with that. And that's one thing I really wanted to get working was that. I'm not sure what the Kdenlive issue is, but it might be, like you said, the Flatpak's not caught up yet. So yeah, it's not always a like you say, it's not always a Wayland problem.
Yeah. Or not even necessarily the most obvious thing, right? Like like I said, you switch to Wayland and it stopped working, then most people would just stop it. Well, it must be Wayland then because it was working on X. But it's like, no, because other Wayland stuff works. So yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if NDI works on Wayland.
Actually, so on the testing Asus G73 that I have taken from my son, I installed the Ubuntu Beta 2204 on it, installed the Deb version of OBS, and then download. But you have to do either install GDebi or something like that because it's not in part of Ubuntu anymore to get them installed. And I installed the NDIs and it works. There is a slight more of a lag between the two systems. It quickens if I hook it up Ethernet than it does Wi-Fi. And then the only thing I noticed on my OBS screen, capturing the laptop screen, there's a little black box surrounding the mouse cursor. That's not there on the screen itself. So there's something in this, but NDI does work on Wayland.
That's pretty awesome. There's a couple of blockers for me to be able to use Wayland over X. One of them is there's some features. I guess it's in OBS now, but I haven't tried it. But there's some features missing in OBS on Wayland. And then the other issue is the ability to do virtual KVM. I cannot do that on Wayland. I have to use X for that. And I use it all the time. Like right now I'm using it. I use it a lot. And actually, what's really neat about the virtual KVM, I use Synergy or QSynergy. Barium, I guess, is another one. But what's really neat about it is, so while I'm helping my oldest with some of his papers, I'll use that and I'll just mouse over into his computer and then I'll like, while he's in front of it, so I can actually help correct things or move things along a little quicker when his typing causes me angst, which is not good entirely on my part, but when it's 7, 8 o'clock at night and he's been dragging his heels on it, we got to get it done, then, we get it done. Yeah, so just a couple of blockers there for Wayland for me, but my experiences on Wayland have been pretty awesome with Plasma, so I'm pretty happy with it, and I want to be able to use it full time. Speaking of Razer earlier, there is Open Razer 3.3 has been released, and I guess I didn't realize it was the same until Scrap. I didn't really dig deep into the notes. So for those unfamiliar with this application, Open Razer is a community project providing open source Linux drivers for various Razer devices, from their keyboards and mice to headsets and other peripherals. Razer doesn't provide configuration software themselves, but this is yet another example of how awesome the Linux community is because of the community project was created to provide the support anyway. So Open Razer 3.3 adds support for some newer Razer products, including the Razer Orchi, I hope I'm saying that correct, Orachi, OROCHI, version 2, the Basilisk, version 3. Why can't they have normal names? Like, what are these names? Are they from something?
Basilisk.
Razer Huntsman Mini, the Blade 17. I wonder what that Blade 17 is. Sounds cool. Is it a knife?
Blade 17 would be a laptop.
Oh, okay. The Naga Epic Chroma. Do you know what that is?
Nope.
Okay.
Mouse.
The Raptor 27, the Naga Pro wired and wireless. Not sure what that is. Huntsman V2, the Blade 15, which is a laptop, I guess we discovered, and the Pro Click wired and wireless. It also has a number of bug fixes and other minor improvements for these Razer devices on Linux. See if I can find it. So Front Page Linux has an article. So if you want to check that out on how to use Razer devices in Linux, it was contributed by Mauro Gaspari. He's a regular contributor to Front Page Linux. So I think that's pretty cool. I like having these open source projects. I wonder how long it's going to take for Razer to almost adopt the open source as their main instead of using their proprietary. I wonder if that's even. Do you think that's even possible? Do you think Razer might do that? Is it good enough that Razer might abandon their proprietary configuration things for
Oh yeah,
open source?
this is like I said before. This is just something that I saw the first time I saw Razer being used with Linux and heard about it was through Hack5. Shannon Morris was using a Razer, and she went to a con. She's like, this was the one laptop that I knew would have the stuff in it for me to be able to go and do my video editing and everything on the go and connect my peripherals and play little games on the side if I wanted to. Not that I had time for it. I was like, okay. So I kept my eye on it. And so, yeah, and I posted a link in the chat here on Zoom, openrazer.github.io. You can see their website. And there's what it is the OpenRazer is packages, the OpenRazer meta packages are just the daemon backend. And then there are open source front ends that can access all of that stuff and can see all of your peripherals, whether it's the RGB on your keyboard or on your mouse or your laptop. Some of the Razer laptops, you can actually turn the little Razer Snake logo on the back of the screen on and off. You can access a lot of that. Some of these even allow you to access the cooling, the fan curves, all of that stuff. I haven't really dug in fully with it, but it's coming along. There's a lot of products on that webpage too.
That's cool. I didn't realize that Razer was such a popular thing. I guess living in my own little bubble, and I guess it's never been discussed. So they have probably a lot of the RGB vomit stuff. Is that a thing then with the Razer devices?
Very much so. Lots of RGB vomit.
How many people here have RGB vomit things? Is that like something they go after? Okay, so Jinda's got the RGB vomit. Scrap does. Thomas. Oh, look at that. Well, yeah, you have a Razer laptop that you're using. Adam, do you have any RGB vomit peripherals, things, mouses, Mises, or hamsters if they're wireless?
You almost can't get away from the RGB. The one thing I don't like though is the RGB stuff where you get like 3 different modes and you can't really select the colors you like. And I like to just I don't do the waves and the Nyan Cat rainbow scroll and all of that, but some of the keyboards you can change the colors per key. I have a non-Razer keyboard. It's like an ASIO or something, and I can change between like 7 or 8 different colors on it. But I like just a static. Put something on there that's warm, or right now I've got this purplish. It's kind of warm. It's kind of cool. It's kind of neutral. I like it. It's whatever. It's nice to have that glow, and then pick a color that fits your eyes that you can, it's comfortable when you're in low light. Just like we like dark mode on everything now. So now we need something else to have that little bit of slice of contrast so we can see where we're typing.
Well, my Commodore 64 Imposter has RGB motherboard lights because I made poor hardware choices. But I always have it glow green because,
Gotta have that retro green with that kind of stuff.
Well, it's just max green LED. Because open Suse green, works well.
See,
not easy being green.
I think it's the best being green. We talking about? Well, anyway. I think that's very cool. So Open Razer, not an official sponsored open source project from Razer, but I think it'd be really cool if somehow Razer decided they were going to maybe put their beans in that basket.
Oh, the Razer Core. That's the name of their USB 3 or Thunderbolt external GPU dock. It's also supported by the Open Razer framework here.
Oh, nice. So that's the thing that you were talking about earlier, the external GPU enclosure. Well, very cool. So now we do have some. We do have some other things in the news, but I want to make sure because Eris and Steve have both nudged me rather forcefully about our distro exploration for next week. Although, so I guess I stole that from you, Steve. What's on the menu for next week?
Let's see. Do I have to go into need to choose a distro?
We don't have anything lined up yet. So there's some some things we already had recommended in there. I see that Ubuntu releases this Thursday, so it means they're probably pretty much locked in now. But as far as other things on the list, the Arch Linux CLI built-in installer. Not crazy about that one, unless somebody really has a hankering for that. I think Alpine Linux is on there, but I thought we had said something about staying away from Alpine for some reason. So Antix is on the list. Arch Labs, we're going to push off Draugr OS until it's ready, so sometime June we'll probably do Draugr OS. Open Mandriva. There's also Storm OS and Micro OS as a suggestion as well. And then of course the Ubuntu's, the whole range of Ubuntu's. So is there anything on that list that really screams out to you, let's explore that distribution? So Steve said you're already doing this weekend, you're going to talk Ubuntu next weekend.
Next weekend.
Tomorrow.
No, next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
That was because I got the beta installed now. I want to do the full release.
Okay.
So I want to install that.
Is Thursday enough time to explore it adequately? That would be my question.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the beta is pretty close, and are we
Ubuntu's-
able to? One thing I haven't found out: are we able to update from the beta to the full?
I'm not sure if you are.
Sure.
Usually, I'm sure there's a way.
I know the Ubuntu Studio even has their beta out for that release as well, and they've, funny enough, have moved to Plasma, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, they moved to Plasma. What 2104?
Is there anything really what's the big difference with the new Ubuntu 22?
Wayland by default, unless you're running Nvidia hardware, that'd be the big thing.
And then kind of what they've done with GNOME 42. Help me here, Adam.
He won't help you.
Yeah.
He likes to watch you grasp.
Oh, my arm won't reach. No. The buffering, triple buffering, I think they have to make things run smoother, and kind of what they have done with the theming a bit, and then the highlight colors. Actually, it looks sweet.
This is Ubuntu proper.
Yeah.
I thought you could do dist upgrade from the beta to the main release, isn't it?
Possibly. I mean, you normally make it easy to go from each of the releases from like 2004 to 2010 and then 2104.
Don't think you can do dist upgrade from a main release to another main version, from one main version to another, but I thought you could with beta. I'm not sure.
I thought beta you could, that it would upgrade because it's not a different repository like the release candidates, or was it?
That's right.
I don't remember on that one. I can't say for sure.
So there's no other interest with all the other ones. What were the other ones again? Alpine Linux,
Antix, Arch Labs, Arch.
Antix. We've done Antix before, haven't we?
Well, it's the run live only, not installing it, just running it live.
Oh, the run live.
So how well could you get along running it just live? Then there's also Storm OS. He's Ben Fitzgerald.
Ben Fitzpatrick.
I think he's now calling it Stormfish OS officially.
Okay.
His version is Arch, and the other Stormfish is based on
there's two different types, isn't there?
Yeah, the one's on Ubuntu, the KDE Neon, based on KDE Neon.
Okay.
And then the Seeker had started it, and a couple other guys are now like Ricky, Yu-Gi-Oh Master, is helping run it, and then Ben. They kind of combine a little bit, but Ben is Arch, but now I think he's calling it Stormfish OS. I don't know, kind of getting a little confused here, but
no, I thought there was two. There's a Storm OS, and there's also a Stormfish OS.
Right, there's Stormfish. They're kind of not combining the distros, right? But I think Ben has moved to calling his now again Stormfish OS, the Arch version.
So Storm OS is making Arch Linux easy, is a beginner-friendly distribution based on Arch Linux by Ben Fitzpatrick. Stormfish OS has 3 different custom respins of KDE Neon and 2 custom spins of XFCE, and has 1 Arch XFCE distro.
Wonder why it seems like the too many baskets there, but I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
MX Linux has a handful of different versions.
Of XFCE, though multiple versions of
MX.
XFCE.
Well, they have the they have x64, 386, and then a 64 AHS, which is advanced hardware support for very recent hardware. Has a 516 kernel, newer graphics drivers, etc. They have the KDE version and they have Fluxbox. They also have unofficial respins like the Raspberry Pi and one that's a Workbench, which has a whole bunch of just tools on it. It's not meant to be installed. Has no installer. That's kind of interesting.
Let's probably wait on Stormfish or Storm, whatever, until we have some maybe more clarity on what on that distribution.
When Ben's in the group, we could probably question him a bit more about the difference between the two.
Yep.
I have to admit, I've never done Antics USB. That's one thing I've never done before.
Okay, we could do that. It's totally within our it'd be a fun explore. And maybe I'll think about it. Maybe we have some ideas. Maybe do some test cases of how of different ways we could use Antics as a live installer, or not live, as a live system, like things you can do with it. Maybe talk about that specifically. It might be kind of fun, actually. It's one of those, I've done it before. It's one of those things you might keep like on your key ring when you need a Linux distribution on the fly thing. So it's kind of cool.
Something with all the tools to recover stuff.
Exactly, like a recovery tool thing. So maybe I can download it. I mean, if that might be a cool one to do. The other would be OpenMandriva. We haven't done that one. I don't think we've done OpenMandriva. And also Micro OS would be another one I think would be interesting to do. Since we can't do Draugr yet, because Thomas is dragging his heels on the new release.
If we're struggling to pick a distro, can we go to like trying a application or something, or can we switch to that? Or
we could. I mean, I don't think it's a difficulty. I think it's just a matter of if we do Antics, is that good? I'm fine with doing Antics. So actually, believe it or not, Colin, I've actually done some organization, and so I have things scheduled out for like the next couple of months.
Oh, okay, all right. So it's got to be a distro exploration then this week. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I don't have to swap things around. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, I'm putting it out there. Let's try Antics USB. It is USB, isn't it?
Yep.
Just USB.
Yep. So to
is
run
that
live
install
only.
Running to run live only, or install as
specifically to run
a,
live only?
It supports persistence.
Yeah, persistence.
Yeah.
So are we doing persistence or just? Is it? Yeah, it would be persistence, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be the way to go, because then you could play with it and configure it and keep going. And if you need to hose it, it's just a USB drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we get the link to that? Because I went to Linux download, and they're showing their latest release from October last year. I want to make sure I'm.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too.
That's probably correct.
And it doesn't say. Let's see. It just says use Rufus to build the USB.
Rufus if using Windows.
Yeah. It would be just a normal. Yeah, Etcher or any of you.
Or if you're fancy, go ahead and DD it.
Don't you do it from the USB? You write it to the USB, then you create the persistence from the USB, isn't it? I believe. I think. I'm not sure.
Usually how it happens. I think that's how Kali does it.
Okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? So we just do a normal write to USB, and then we go from there. I think.
Yeah, let's do that and see how it works.
Okay.
All right. So Antics it is. If Eris were here, I'd say go ahead and put that in the notes because, you're good like that. All right. So Antics it is. We'll check that out for next week. Hopefully, we'll have some fun with that. I have just a It's just a thought train, something I pulled from the Destination Linux Network discourse forum. So that's discourse to Destination Linux Network, destinationlinux.network. There's actually a dlnforum.com, I think is the other one. I'll get to it much quicker. So here's a question for you. I'm sure Adam's just going to say yes right out of the gate because it's the kind of guy he is. But is desktop Linux on borrowed time?
see.
What? I'm confused by the
What?
question.
There's too much
Yeah, I'm a
interest.
bit confused.
Do you think
What do you mean? Borrowed time?
do you think that although as much as we love, playing with our computers, Linux, building things, do you think that the desktop itself and the emphasis put on desktop is a waning activity?
Do you want to read his 3 points from his that
Sure.
opinion piece?
Sure. I have it up, but so here's the idea. Ubuntu is more focused on the cloud more than ever. Ever since they dropped Unity and Ubuntu Touch, it's focused on cloud enterprise because that's where the money is. Since then, not much innovation has happened for the average desktop user, and no, normalizing GNOME doesn't count for innovation. 2, Fedora will always be this half-rolling test bed for Red Hat. Despite the great strides made in revamping installers for easy enabling third-party non-free repos, a huge subsegment of Linux users can't get with the 6-month release schedule, let alone its proclivity in pushing things before they are officially ready. And then that leaves with OpenSUSE or SUSE, perhaps the greatest hope. I like this. Perhaps the greatest hope for traditional desktop experience in Linux. But
OpenSUSE, your only hope.
help me, OpenSUSE. You're my only hope.
Y-
But
You know, I think Fedora's got it. They're not. It's like this seems to be a recurring theme that keeps coming up, at least for me today. Is Linux is not as hard as people make it out to be. Things are so much more easy, so much easier. Let me use some grammar here. Things are much easier these days.
I think so too.
We have standardized drivers for dang near everything anymore. I mean, what more can you ask for? We were talking about we're almost to the point where we're like distro agnostic. You go where you have the base set of tools that you would want out of your initial install, and then your use case stuff is in some form of containerized repo like Flatpak or Snap for the most part. I hear that more and more, and so I don't understand why these desktops would be going away, because there are people using them, right? And Fedora, so go from there.
So my thing is we've had arguably in the last 5 years having like an explosion of desktop usage. Now we have Steam or Valve on the Steam Deck. They'll have a version of Plasma on that as the desktop interface underneath. But with the shift for a lot of things going mobile, a lot of mobile apps, a lot of people don't even have desktop computers, and this is kind of an old argument. But do you see the de-emphasizing of the desktop, like by Ubuntu, as the beginning of the end for the era of the computer desktop?
No,
because desktop computing, it's useful for creation. It is useful for actual work and such. I think de-emphasis from a pleasure thing, from a casual computing thing, sure, because you can get most of your like daily stuff done on a tablet or most likely your phone more than anything. But if you need to sit down and bang out an email, or you need to do work with a spreadsheet or CAD stuff or movies or anything like that, then yeah, you need a desktop, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
I think if you're asking the question of Linux, then you're also probably asking the same question of Windows, aren't you? Because if anyone's going to go away from the desktop, you'd have to think it's Windows, because I mean they're controlling the market, but there's no way people on YouTube and all these other platforms are going to go away from the desktop, because that's the only place you can make a good creation, isn't it? Except for these, Twitter and not Twitter, what do you call them? These TikTok and all this other stuff that comes up, and now they got
YouTube Shorts,
Shorts and all that.
So if
they're
things
probably done,
that's what most people like especially younger folks look at it these days is like their computer, their laptop or whatever. That's what I use for school. That's what I use for work. That's not what they
Mhm.
use outside of a sort of productivity context, aside from gaming.
Well, people do also like tablet or phone gaming. I mean, you can play Minecraft. You know, I've seen it. I've done it.
Yeah, but I think people are using the mobile situation like when they're on holidays or when they're chilling out in the outside of the home, or in outside of your normal work environment, just something easy to go browsing YouTube or whatever. But I still think that people still like to come back to a desktop and see things on a big screen, isn't it? I do. That's
me
my
too.
opinion and my perspective. But people will vary. But
The
Is there any
creative
home
space
without a
is
desktop? Like, is there any home without a desktop or a laptop? Like, that answers the question. Like, everyone has mobile phones, but at home, at least there is one desktop or a laptop.
yeah,
Like, you can't get work done with just a mobile and a tablet. Like, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, I agree.
the and the other thing about, say, take Nvidia or the gaming space. These companies, they're pushing forward on bleeding edge tech that is not just how many frames you can get on your monitor. They're doing AI learning stuff, but what's funding that? You buying a 3080 Ti, right?
Sure.
Those guys are not going to get somebody's not just going to pay them to build those crazy systems that are going to crunch all of your social media data into something a government can use to put a little tinfoil on. It's not going to happen overnight. Like, there has to be a real market to drive the innovation at the other end. Everywhere you go in an office, there's a keyboard. You'll hear that clickety clack. You'll have a key. There's a monitor somewhere. There's a mouse in somebody's hand. Those things have to exist to do mundane tasks. But there's the enthusiast crowd that is willing to pay way more money than it probably costs to make that stuff, because we want it. We want the shiny. We want the RGB. We want the big numbers. We want the next thing to come out, and it's fun. And we're the ones that are pushing it forward, so that way everyone else can have that super fast SSD. If there wasn't somebody out there complaining about how long it took to load games, or how long it takes to load data from a database somewhere, your cousin that doesn't really care about any of this stuff, that just wants to pull his computer up and watch YouTube, wouldn't have a blazing fast SSD or a mildly fast SSD. We were talking about this stuff earlier. It's like how reliable these things are. You don't even have to spend exorbitant amounts of money for stuff anymore. It's like, it just works. This stuff just it's there. But yeah, we're going to have these desktops. Somebody needs to have them for work somewhere. And then they're gonna be like, well, what do we do with all of these binned parts? We got to make these low power systems, and we have to sell these binned parts because we can't sell them. We can't sell this thing as an 8-core when only 6 of them work. Right? They're going to make lower tier products, and they're going to sell them to us somehow.
Well, Scrap, I think you're wrong, because I think you're biased because you like computers. I'm just kidding. I don't think you're wrong at all. But we are at time. I do want to hit a few things that are going on in the next week or few days before we wrap it up. And it was a great discussion we had there right at the end. I think we should have done it a little bit sooner, but hey, there we go. So the desktop is not dead or dying. That's our consensus, I think. Maybe someday, according to Joe Panico in the chat, but in the short term, probably not.
Maybe when Neuralink is a thing.
Yeah, I think Neuralink is fine for the idea of like controlling if like someone loses their limb, in an accident. But I don't think connecting to the internet's a good idea. I think
we don't want to live through Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
No, we
don't
don't.
want to be in a post, utopian,
Apocalyptic world.
apocalyptic, Ridley
What's a
Scott
computer?
film.
What's a computer?
That's a good
I have-
question.
I have an
Apple.
abacus somewhere.
Well, someday when those EMPs go off, we're not gonna have computers anyway, I suppose. So, anyway, so Rick, you are not doing a stream this week because
Right,
you've
next week.
so it'll be 2 weeks for Rick, but he does on Wednesday nights. He does a live stream. Mark, you have the Atlanta Linux Users Group. Are you meeting tomorrow, or are you taking Easter Sunday off?
Nope, we meet every Sunday. So
Okay.
it's 3 to 6 US Eastern. The link for that is ale.org. And that's all.
So do we have to wear bunny ears when showing up? I'm just curious. Is that required tomorrow to wear bunny ears, or is it encouraged even?
You have to use the new, avatar in Zoom for tomorrow.
Oh, well, that
I'm
makes
not
sense.
sleeping tonight.
Yeah, there you go. New
All right.
avatars in Zoom.
Well, that's cool. I don't know how you did that, but congratulations on something that's pretty darn cool. Okay, excellent. So
That's,
tomorrow.
that's closed source software. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, the Atlanta Linux Users Group. That's awesome. You keep doing that. So Steve, tomorrow, are you doing and then Sirvan, he's now doing it. So that's pretty
show
cool.
offs, I swear.
So are you doing your coffee clash tomorrow, or are you taking
Yes.
are you taking a caffeine break?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm gonna just have an open discussion on the different views of Linux.
So it's a Linux coffee clash.
Slick. It's very slick.
Excellent. So Destination Linux is not streaming tomorrow. It'll be released maybe tomorrow. I don't know when it's gonna be released, but they're not streaming tomorrow. They streamed this past Friday. So if you missed it, you can catch it later. So Linux Out Loud, we have another episode coming out tomorrow, Wednesday. Thankfully, Matt actually showed up this time because sometimes he just doesn't. And so we had a great discussion where we talked about applications that we use on the regular. Also, if you want anything more on me, go to cubicule8.com. I do stuff. I want to thank you all for being a part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting and in the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching this show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computer. Thank you for stopping by, and be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
Happy Easter.
Right.
Who slipped out there at the end?